Okay, we will have quite a bit. Let me see.
We need to have like a series of podcasts.
Yes,
Cover all of it.
but it's good. I'm recording, by the way, now. So,
All right.
yes. So, for our audience, you're not aware, we've been just discussing for an hour at least with Carl about agentic AI agents, Cloud Code, Cursor. But now I actually forced Carl and said, like, let's hit record button. Yeah. For those who don't know, Carl has been already at the podcast before, but a lot changed since then, right?
I mean, like, I think the last time we spoke, was it like October, November?
Something around that time. Yeah, October maybe.
I mean, it's like ancient,
October 2024, yeah.
ancient history. Like,
Yeah, RAG and...
it's prehistoric times for coding agents and agents as well.
Yeah.
Like people thought that 2024 will be like the year of agents. Wasn't anymore. Everyone was super disappointed. And then like some people started thinking that maybe 2025 will be the year of agents, like cautiously.
Yeah, now it is.
It has been. Most definitely.
Just to start off, I want to ask you actually one question before we kind of delve into all the topics. Can you give us a sneak peek into how your coding workflow looks like today, in the last week or in the last 2 weeks? What's your setup today? How your coding looks like? And then we will, of course, unravel and go into separate topics.
Well, one caveat is that I'm currently on paternity leave, so I'm not working on really like production code basis. So
only for a few weeks.
Yeah, so it would be definitely be different if I would be working on production code basis, but I'm like building stuff for myself and just for fun, so it looks very, very different. I think I don't know. I don't even know how many thousands of lines of code in recent weeks like I have written. Like have my agent written. Probably hundreds of thousands, because like one like I was in like the agent was implemented one feature in like continuously working on it like during the night when I was sleeping, like 9 hours straight, and it produced like 23,000 lines of code.
And it was Cloud Code setup.
Yeah, right? It's Cloud Code. So like I think I have not written any lines of code. I have barely I have not looked at the code. I only see like some of the diffs that they changes, and when I see something stupid, then I just not to do.
But this is for personal projects, right? There's a difference here. Yeah.
So it's kind of like I only look at like this file tree of seeing like what files are there and like what is the like git changes, like what's like essentially what it has changed, and then like just telling to do things.
Can you describe from just for people to understand, like what's the setup from technical perspective? What are the tools used, and like how example of your loop of, let's say, you interacting, giving input an agent, and then how you interact with agent, and just like kind of describing to the audience like 10 minutes of your workflow, so to speak, in a common situation, just again as a sneak peek to the whole conversation.
So yeah, I'm using Cloud Code mainly
today, right?
I also have Cursor subscription, but I use it to look at file tree and maybe some files occasionally. I might as well use VS Code. It's just free. I haven't used like Cursor, agent, chat, whatever, like for a long time, for weeks.
Do you think Cursor is prehistoric compared to Cloud Code right now?
Yes, it is. Like, I mean, I haven't checked out the like recent features. Like background agents is cool. I think that it got this to-do listing and like this some of the things, but it's cool. But it's like the form factor and some of the features are like kind of legacy in a sense of today's coding agents. Because like I'm using Cloud Code, and like the reason is that it works better than Cursor agent. It's just more seamless. It's smarter. Like and what it can do is like, which is super powerful, and none of the Cursor forks on any of the IDE agents don't have is they're not composable, and Cloud Code and like these kind of agents are composable in a sense that they can call itself, which is like I mean like exponentially powerful in a sense. It can call itself, like you can give it task. Like why would it? You can do the task, but if you actually start thinking about it, you can parallelize it. And if it calls itself, it gives like a smaller tasks to the sub agent, which saves the context window of the main agent. So it can have like overview, right? So it's like this is like the power that you can have with this CLI tools. So you have it, and if you use well these sub agents, you know how to like kind of steer it. You essentially tell the model like, hey, you have this I don't know 100 TypeScript errors here now, right? And what they usually do is like, hey, group them, like analyze them, group them, and launch sub agents to fix like every like subset of these errors. And like it does it in parallel, which is much faster when it starts going through one-on-one. Right? It's like you're kind of like you're not saving any like tokens in a sense. It's just kind of still the same thing that it does, but you smartly parallelize it. You have to wait less in a sense. But it's just much more powerful way to do things. But another reason, and I think the main reason, is why I use Cloud Code a lot is that it has this max plan, and you can use it a lot. I mean, you can have like, but like I said, like it worked by itself autonomously, like 9 hours straight
during the night while you're sleeping. Yeah.
And like it just runs, and the maximum that you will pay a month is $200. It sounds a lot when you're coming from this old like Cursor pricing point, like $20. But like if you run Cursor 9 hours straight, like or like prompted to do things, like I think you will pay a lot more a day.
And I think you told me, shared, but you spent how many? If it was measured in API usage.
Yeah. You can also use Cloud Code with your API token, and it's insanely expensive. Like I will never do it. I wouldn't use Cloud Code today if it wouldn't be the Cloud Max plan, because like the users cost would be like through the roof. Like this month, like first 2 weeks, if I would have used the API token, then my costs would be like over $5,000.
It's quite a difference with $200.
It's 2 weeks, and like still 2 months to go, and like this that day when I had this like 9-hour session and like another 7-hour session, and sometimes had like 3 to 5 agents parallel working on different projects, then the day cost was like $750. 1 day would have been costing like $750, and I'm paying $200 per month.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, if you're not using Cloud Code today to do everything in your life, coding, not coding, whatever, because it's like a Cloud Code is general purpose agent.
Yep.
Like it's masquerading as coding agent, but it's general purpose agent. You can tell it to do anything. Okay, you can tell it to, I don't know, write like blog articles, or you can tell it to analyze or summarize things. Like
which model does it use under the hood?
Or
you can choose.
So if like you can use it with these plans, you can use it with Pro account, which is $20 per month, with Cloud account. This uses only the Sonnet 4.
Yeah, right.
If you use it with Max 5X, it first 20% of the users limit, it uses the Opus for, and like
Then switches to Sonnet.
then it switches to Sonnet. But with Max 20X, which is a $200 plan, which is like 220 times the amount of usage of the Pro plan. This uses 50% of Opus and the 50% of Sonnet.
Got it. Yeah.
It's like you're mostly using
Opus. Yeah.
which is 5 times more expensive than Sonnet. So this is one of the reasons why the numbers are so big. Like if I will be using Sonnet, it will be like 5 times less.
Got it.
So it's like instead of like 5,000 in 2 weeks, it will be well, not 1,000, but maybe like 1 or 2,000, like which is like a lot less than.
Just want to also say, so we will cover like everything about AI agents, and maybe we need to record 3-4 episodes for that as a season, of talks. But what do you think? Because there are 2 tracks we can go. One is discuss how AI agents are disrupting, let's say, engineering development, right, and everything related to that. And maybe that's for another episode. What do you think? Discussing AI agents and how to build them for production features, right? Because that's completely another game. But I think let's first start with how it transforms development and the engineering.
In a sense, it's much more urgent topic because like Dario Amodei, who is the CEO of Anthropic and the original creator of the GPT models in OpenAI, he told that 2026 will be the kind of the end times, or like just like when things start to happen, and the first jobs to go is software engineers. Of course, is known to have like very big proclamations, but then again, he's one of the people most closer to the knowing when this coming, right?
I think LeCun doesn't like him. He said like, but yeah, it's controversial. But yeah, the fact that it's disrupting is 100%. I mean, it's already clear.
It's already disrupting, and it's not like I don't see it slowing down. It's like it's still evolving so fast and getting like it's hard to keep up. Even for me, who tries to keep up all the time, but it's like everything is happening, and then it's accelerating, and like it's like everyone is now building like all these things, like
Where do we want to start the discussion? Because I mean, you shared an outline or some topics we could discuss before I hit the record button. One topic I thought that you mentioned to me before is this discussion of how it affects junior engineers versus senior and middle engineers. What if we start from that? Because that sets the scene very well, and then we can go maybe deeper into other topics.
So I think like there have been a lot of skepticism that are AI like agents even like useful. I like, or like some objections that I could do it faster myself, like things like that. It's like creating crap, but like it's like I understand the sentiment, but I think if you're like your objections are like something like that, you're not seeing the trend. And if you look at the trend, it is getting better all the time. And if you're not doing something about it, you're gonna be left behind.
And it's not hype anymore, right? It's actually for productivity improvements, and
there is a lot of hype as well. Like you can't replace like a software engineer with a coding agent, but software engineer with a coding agent, and a software engineer who can use it effectively is like much more productive.
It's like I can make a metaphor. It's like imagine 2 soldiers. One is just with just going themselves to fight, and then on the other side there's an Iron Man, right, in a suit, still being in control, right, and everything, but in a like the suit that can do a lot of things. And this is the difference, right?
And I think didn't Iron Man suit can fly by itself as well?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. There you go. So you can fly with the suit.
Yeah, or without.
You can let it fly autonomous.
Exactly.
If you want to, or like dare to.
But I think this metaphor is kind of sits very well here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so I seems like the engineers who get the most out of it, who are embracing the coding agents the most, are junior engineers and senior engineers. It seems the reason is that junior engineers are embracing them because they don't know how to do things like all the things that need to be done in software engineering or like writing code. But with coding agents, they are getting a lot of leverage in the sense that they can get productive very fast. They can use them to explain like different concepts to them. They can use like how to do things in this code base or like and then they can let them do these things, and they can learn along the way from the agent.
For example, like they don't know how dependency injection works in Spring or why, like what annotation to use. They can ask it questions.
Or they're looking at the code and like just asking what it does.
Yeah.
Like why is it here?
Understanding the code base.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
and like.
Even though understanding the code base is relevant for all engineers.
Of course.
Yeah.
But like it's like it's such an unlock that they don't have to like, I don't know, Google or like ask someone else. Like it's just like that. Just a loop of like learning loop is so much faster.
Yeah.
And they can be productive like so much faster. Like just directing the agent to do things. Like because usually you get to do simple things, and like doing simple things with the agents is quite seamless today.
What in your opinion juniors should focus on in terms of their skill development? And let's say that agents maybe cannot replace today, but what is still the leverage that juniors should focus on? And maybe not only juniors, but generally engineers, but especially juniors, let's say.
Well, of course, fundamentals, software fundamentals, like because I think like coding, like majority of coding like manual coding will go away soon. But in order to like still have code that is like manageable or like well written and well put together, and like you can evolve it, you need to have very good principles in place.
Software design, architecture, testing.
But this like you can't just like learn it as a junior, I think. But still, yeah, you need to start like thinking about in these terms, like kind of.
You can still learn from the industry. You can read good books and reflect. And
I think this is still valuable. So just like agents can't do it. They can generate code, but they can't think like coherently in like bigger context.
Yeah.
This is still a human job today. Not about next year. And another thing, I think like it was head of engineering of Shopify who was talking about, and in one of the podcasts, that what they like to do is they don't hire juniors, but they hire a lot of interns. I think didn't even say like they plan to hire like 1,000 interns or like some like insane number.
And then they choose the best, or
what?
And then they choose the best out of them, or
that I don't know. But the reason why they hire interns is essentially like they hire young people because like young people are growing up with AI, and they're kind of AI native.
Yeah.
So they have things to learn, like teach.
They're teachable.
They're teachable, but they have things to teach like older engineers.
Okay, I see.
Because
I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's second nature to them, which is not for us, because for us it's change. Change is like super hard. The more like older you are, like more like specialist you are, right? So it's like we don't just like change, but it's not change for them because like it's they're only starting, right?
Yeah.
It's normal to them, so they can come in like and be like super like efficient with AI and then like naturally use it, like will it, and like be like basically teach us things that are not like very obvious. But this is what I think juniors should do, that they should lean on, like, and I think the Shopify head of engineering said that the juniors or the interns should come in with LLM and the brain.
Yeah.
Not the either.
Yes. Yes.
You shouldn't turn off your brain using LLM.
Yes.
If you bring both, you can be much more powerful.
Yeah. True.
And with why senior engineers are like embracing it, because like as seniors, you want to focus on like more higher level things, like more where you have more leverage, like system design or like abstractions or like
solving business problems.
Problems like API design, all these things, like everything clicks together, and like thinking through like this business logic and these kind of things, and you don't care about really like to writing this out. It's like kind of formalizing or like tedious thing. So if like and you like you most likely are creating some kind of system design documentations on like these kind of things, then
seniors know like coding is not the hardest part is thinking through the design, modeling the domain, and true ease, figuring out the requirements, talking to product people.
Exactly. And then like as a senior, if you're doing this, you don't have to deal with like writing this out. You can just like try ideas, like try parallel, like I'm like maybe this will work better, like this thing.
By the way, this try ideas, and I want to stop here as well in a sense. UX prototyping is super powerful, right? With agents.
Any kind of POC.
Yeah, any kind of.
So, and like I did it at work as well. That I just kind of wipe coded like a POC. Like it doesn't matter if it works.
And it's for feedback group, right?
It's like POC is proof of concept, right? If it works, the concept is proven, right? And you don't care about the code, right?
Yeah.
So but you're thinking about proof of concept as a senior engineer.
Yeah.
Juniors don't do like proof of concept.
Exactly.
So it's like a super powerful tool. Like things to like explore ideas.
Exactly. And you can throw this code away, but the value is in exploring the idea, getting the conversation started with domain experts, with product people, and then you can throw away and rewrite it properly.
Yes. And the powerful thing you can do is that you could do it as a person as well, like as a senior engineer, like coding it up. But what you can't do is running, 3 or 5 agents in parallel.
Yeah.
Maybe even with the same prompt or different concepts, like whatever. Maybe you can run with the same system design and tell the agent to do it 3 times, and then you choose the best one, for example. Because like if you have a long iteration, then it's like and the LLMs are non-deterministic, then it can go very, very different ways. If for example it comes up with some idea at very start of this conversations that it thinks something to do, it will stay in this token prediction probability throughout this conversation, and if it goes one or the other way, it can go like way far from the other solution. In that sense, it might be even very wise to try to do like multiple times. Because if it doesn't work one time, maybe you just were unlucky. It might work 2 other times.
By the way, for seniors, do you believe not only, but I think actually especially for seniors, let's say dealing with legacy code bases, I think it's also very useful in this sense, because understanding of the code bases is enhanced using agents.
Even there was this was it paper or some article that Google was doing, they have migrated 30% of some legacy code bases with LLMs.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think I heard something
exactly
around that.
They're using the LLMs to do these tedious things and then flag the things that need human review.
Yeah, but I think they had the really sophisticated test coverage and the pipeline. So feedback loops again.
And this is what you need to do, or need to have. You need to have very good test coverage as a feedback loop. So for example, when I was still working on production database before my parental leave, then what I did was then when I was refactoring this part of the code base, I first told LLM to create integration tests at the very edge of the module, and then I could refactor inside the module, and still the test will pass. I know it works. So I could essentially have much give the agent much more freedom to do things, because I know the test will pass. Of course, I will review later this code, but it will have this feedback loop that if the tests don't pass, then I don't care, is it? So it's the tests are the main thing. Yeah.
You mentioned in behind the scenes before we hit record that mid-level engineers might struggle with these changes today. Can you elaborate?
We talked about junior engineers and senior engineers, why they might embrace it, but mid-level engineers are kind of in this valley of struggle, because they are already good enough that they know what's good code, what's bad code, but they are not good enough in system design and kind of thinking of solutions by themselves to direct the model or create the solution by themselves. So the agents can create garbage, and they can't they don't know the right words, or they don't
have vocabulary, they don't have skills.
They don't have skills or this experience to guide it, or basically tell the correct things to the model that it can get out of this funk.
And this again, I think, stresses on the fundamentals knowledge, right? As mid-engineer, pretty much, you can do yourself a best service by pretty much doubling down on becoming good at fundamentals.
And I think this is a good segue to spec-driven development, because this is something that is at the moment on the rise.
Can you explain what it is and how the term was forged, or by whom?
I don't know who forced it, or but the spec-driven development essentially means that you have this specification document
in natural language.
Exactly. So essentially, as you would with human developers, you will have some kind of project brief, you have requirements, then you might link to some technical design documents, you have all this documentation before you start building things. Usually if you're in building some product, you wouldn't start hey, somebody, CEO tells developer, hey, one sentence, I need this thing, and the developer, okay, I will start coding. It sounds insanity, but this is how we approach LLMs today, right? We tell them one sentence, you build it, and it fails to do it fails to build the thing we actually thought of, imagined, didn't tell the LLM to do it. Then no wonder it fails.
Basic communication.
Exactly.
But now we need to improve communication, not only human to human, but human to LLM, right?
And with humans, they have this implicit knowledge, right? But
context.
Exactly. But LLMs have amnesia. Every time you start the conversation, they know nothing. You have to start building up this context. So you have to put the exact right context into the context window to make them build the thing that you want. And this is the part of this spec. And your job is to create this spec that has all the necessary things to make the agent successful to build the thing that you actually want. And AWS just launched this VS Code fork, I think, or I think it was built on this open code, which is foundation for the VS Code. So it built this spec-driven like IDE. which
Kiro?
is-
Is it called?
Kiro, yes,
Kiro.
exactly. AWS created this. This just launched
Mhm.
last week.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago or vice versa.
So I think this is like this is really the right direction, because you need to have structure. Like if you want to build like serious applications, you can't just pipe code.
Yep.
Like you're just like having conversation and coming something up. This is like not cutting it. You need to have like real serious process, like you would with professional software development. You have to have it with agents as well, right? So this is like the kind of the essence of the spec-driven development, where what you will include in spec, and this is my own definition. I don't know what, maybe there is some official one, but what I will do, and you asked about my workflow, is that what I want to have in the spec to make the agent successful is I want to have the why. Why does this feature need to exist? What is the user need? What is the pain point that it?
It's even important for LLM, right? Because it could optimize best.
Exactly. So it's like you're describing your like the source of your intent.
Yeah. I just want to say, this is maybe a philosophical point for any engineering leads or any leads in general, is if you hire people and like you have any team, explain them the why, and then they will figure out the rest most likely if it's a good team. But if you don't start with the why, you just tell them what to do, that's the start of the problem.
Exactly. So you start with the why, and then you describe like based on the why, and this needs to be non-conflicting, of course, because sometimes if you're making mistakes, it can conflict it, and it will confuse people, and it could use the same way agent as well. So you have the why, like user stories or like whatever, like describing like what's the actual thing that you want, and then you have the what, so describing like what it needs to do, what is the acceptance criteria, like what are the views, what are the interactions, like whatever you're building, essentially the like list of things that needs to work in the end.
I think user stories is a good one as well. Like, right, for example, you can say, as a user, once I log in, I want to see this page, right, or this or that.
This is the what, right?
Yeah.
And this is coming down from the why. And finally, you have the how. And this is also important to figure out at first in the spec. And this is your job as an engineer. Like first you can do as a product manager, right? You don't need an engineer for that.
Yeah.
This is all, everything is necessary, of course.
Yeah.
But the how part is the job for an engineer, to prime the agent to do the correct thing that you think what the solutions look like. Like
the architecture would make sense, right? Modules would make sense.
For example, if you're creating completely new service module or whatever, for example, what you will do is you will lay out the directory structure.
Yeah, exactly.
You will have like code snippets of examples of what code should look like.
Just to give me
maybe even from the POC, like the core parts that are necessary. So it doesn't like start from scratch the imagining thing. So it's you're like kind of putting it on the right track, and and the job of the agent is not coming up with all this like very ambiguous code or like based on very ambiguous requirements, but it has a starting point.
Yeah.
And then it will just needs to put these things together coherently, write tests and like iterate and if the tests and like linters everything passes, then it most likely is ready.
And just to give an example of this priming and how, it's very important. So for example, if you know you want to, let's say, follow vertical slicing architecture, right? You can prime it. If you know that you want these specific interfaces between modules, you can also prime it and say it. So you you're still the shaper, the main shaper, but you use these tools.
And why is it necessary is that it has amnesia. You have to approach it in a way that it doesn't know anything about your code base, doesn't know anything about anything. It's just like first day at job. You have to explain it everything. And like it's super smart person first day on job, and sometimes lazy, and sometimes doing like stupid things. But if you prime it well, it's like it will do the job very well. And like and then like this is the like this first part of the spectrum and development. Create the spec was to add all these details, and it needs to be super detailed, because whatever detail you will miss, it will do how it thinks it should be done. And as it doesn't have any of your like organization like context and anything, it might do things that you don't want to do. And this is very apparent. Like even when I've created like super detailed specs, I still see like at some point, I missed this part. I did the wrong thing that I wouldn't wanted to do. So it's like you need to be very, very detailed at that. And your work essentially as a developer, PM, or whoever, like using these agents, is creating this super detailed spec.
Yeah.
And like think it through. And this is and if you have done that, your job is mostly done. Because like what comes like downstream, this is just like kind of like formalization of the thing that you have in the spec.
I just want to say the spec-driven development can be put maybe in contrast or in comparison with TDD-driven development, because what is the most accurate spec that machine can execute? It's a test, right? And again, it's to say as an alternative to this approach, which is similar but kind of goes with the TDD loop. And I know Kent Beck, by the way, those who don't know, Kent Beck actually embraced agentic AI a lot, and he's documenting quite well in his Substack. I highly recommend everyone to check it out on his kind of explorations and journey with that. And he follows still the kind of TDD loop, but now it's on steroids, where he writes a test, right? And then he might even write it with agent or not, doesn't matter. But I mean, he's in control of the test, right? He writes it, and then he instructs the LLM and says like, you have to implement this test, and you cannot change the test. Like that's what he commands. But I'm just saying, but yeah, this is just another kind of philosophy, but it's still the same thing, because but it requires a certain skill. You have to be you have to practice TDD skills, but that's also kind of you guide it. And and
if you write the test yourself, it most likely is what you want to do. But if the agent writes the tests, then it sometimes can write the test
absolutely
in a way that is not actually
the whole point that you write the test here. But these are alternative approaches. I just like want to say like people can play around with different ones. But two are important.
Just like from my own experience, that sometimes the agent based tests, which are like too strict in a way, or like that actually you want to instruct the agent to look at the expectations of the test and maybe change that.
Exactly. That's the first thing. Like your first job is to fix the test, or like make the test right, and then only instruct the agent to implement the test, right? And then you refactor or whatever.
Coming back to the spec-driven development, texting, what you would do when you have this super thorough spec with all the information, what you want to do is decompose it to tasks. These atomic tasks that are like, think of itself like that you can commit it and like have the working state. And so you don't definitely want to throw just a spec to the agent that, hey, just do it. It will be a mess, which is too much. It's like, it's usually like a feature. Like even as like a human software engineer.
We also have separate tasks
like epics, like one feature epics, right? You have like many tasks, maybe like 10, 20 tasks or something like that. You work like iteratively. You want to do the same thing with agent. You want to like essentially what I do with Cloud Code is that I use the slash commands, and I have slash commands for like creating the spec. So essentially what I do is I describe what I wanted to do and maybe have some examples, and then I have this slash commands is kind of this prompt library, and then I prompt it to search the code base and like find all the things that needs to be changed and like what is like files to be created, blah blah. So it's like I'm letting it do a lot of the thinking and like this like pre-work, which I can check and like may modify. So I don't really have to do everything myself. So it's like I'm doing shortcut. I have the idea and maybe I can modify it, or like I tell the agent to modify if I see like things want to do it differently. So this is the first part. I already use like the agent to do some of the work of create busy spec. And of course I have like, I think one of the most important things that you need to have to be good with coding energies. You need to have good taste. You need to like you're bringing the taste. It's like the solutions that the agents will pick. It's all cargo culting. They're all like they have seen all these different projects in the training data, and they just like predict, hey, like here this needs performance test, this needs power test, all these things that are actually you don't really want manage. But when I have created like some of the applications, all of these automatically have performance tests, whether I asked or not. So it's like it's all cargo culting. So you need to have like taste, and you need to have like critical thinking that what you actually need, like to cut it and like it around. So you need to decompose it. So I have slash command for that as well. So it will actually go through the spec and make create different tasks. And usually what I've seen it do is like it creates these Markdown files of like, this intermediate state for itself generating.
It persists the Markdown files, right?
Yes,
in the,
exactly. And like and then from that Markdown file it will create the tasks. So and I have instructed in this slash command as well that it should include all the like this information in what is in the spec as well. Because otherwise, what it likes to do is like create these very brief tasks, but it's useless, right? And all these code examples and all this information that is in there, like condensed into this test, that it's self-sufficient. You can just create the agent and then it will do it. So and the next thing that you want to do is you tell the agent to work through the tasks one by one.
And that's how it ran 7 or 9 hours, right? Because you had a spec decomposed into tasks, and the agent knew what to work on, right?
Exactly.
And it didn't need your prompt in the middle of the night, right? Because you already gave it all the instructions.
Exactly.
And then went to rest.
Yes, exactly. And how else it did was that Cloud Code can launch sub agents. So basically what the main agent did was it was the orchestrator, and for each task essentially it created a to-do list to do tasks, which is super meta.
Yes.
Like it's always great to do this to-do list to do things.
Is it an internal thing or it persisted?
It is persisted in some JSON file.
Okay, but it's like purely for cloud.
This is like inside this conversation.
Yeah.
Like
that I remember. I played around and I saw that.
So it creates a to-do list for itself, essentially, and just like to do these tasks. It's like it has great there. So and if you decompose it yourself, or like let it decompose in a way that you create dependencies between tasks which you have, like in Jira and like all this tasks.
It knows where to parallelize, right?
Exactly.
Even.
So you can it can launch these sub agents in parallel to work on this job.
Yeah.
So for example, if you have like this I don't know project or whatever set of done, and some of the things can parallelized which do not have like dependencies, and it can move faster. And why you would want to use these sub agents for doing this task and use the main agent only as orchestrator is that you will save the context window of the main agent. It was like the cloud model like Sonnet and Opus as well the context window limit is 200,000 tokens.
200,000, right? It's not as big as Gemini Pro, right?
It's not, yes. So,
Mhm.
and if you run into this limit, it does this intelligent compacting. It's essentially what it does. It with the smaller model, it reads all this conversation history and rewrites the summary,
Mhm.
which is like starts a new one in the new like session with the summary. It has like some of the context, but you like usually you wouldn't want to do it. So how you save it and don't like run into this limit. You let it launch sub agents. So only thing that you have in the main agent context window is like
Main tasks, and again.
telling the sub agent to do tasks, and the sub agent can get the task content by itself. It doesn't even have to like send the task content.
Yeah.
It's like you have it stored
Yeah.
and it can fetch it. This is like and this way it can like just work through this task, and like this 9-hour session. It worked to like 17 tasks.
Now we know how Carl ran it for 9 hours.
Yeah, and like like working like this, and you need to know like how to like kind of prompt the agent. It has this like again like another slash command, this execute command, which instructs it or launch sub agents for tasks that based on these dependencies and whatnot, and essentially directing it how to do it. It's like if you just tell it to do it, then who knows how it will do it, right?
Yep. All right. What's next? So we talked about sub agents in Cloud Code. Do you want to go deeper on Cloud Code right now? What do you think?
Yeah. So
Maybe a few topics to explore, right? Is conceptual differences of Cloud Code as a CLI, right, agent versus cursor, and why it's important. And maybe that introduction would be important because there are many tools now: Cursor, Cloud Code, others. Why do you consider Cloud Code to be different from Cursor, for example, conceptually?
I think there has been like explosion of CLI based coding agents. I think Cloud Code came out in February or something like that. I think probably was the first CLI based agent, and at first I didn't get it. Why I would want to do that?
Terminal, right? Like back to Vim days.
I very much like it in IDE.
Yeah.
Like it's much better. But now I'm 100% converted. Like I don't see the point of IDE. Like in the sense of agent.
Yeah.
In the sense of like actually writing code yourself. Of course, it's necessary if you want to write code, right? But or draft something. But using an agent, I don't see the point.
Can you explain us why?
Well, exactly that. Like as I described, CLI agents are composable. They can call themselves. Like not all CLI agents or like CLI coding agents have the possibility of running sub agents, but it's coming probably to every one of them. And Gemini CLI, I think it's in development. AmpCode, which is one of
AmpCode?
AmpCode is a CLI coding agent from SourceGraph.
SourceGraph.
Yes, they had this. It was Codium or they had like this VS Code based coding agent, but then they started building from scratch the AmpCode, and it is one of the better ones. They have made very good choices as well, and this has sub agents, and they added the sub agents after the Cloud 4, Sonnet 4, and Opus 4 models came out. Cloud Sonnet 3.5 and 3.7 didn't really use the sub agents feature, like calling kind of tooling itself. But I think what Anthropic did with this Cloud 4 models they trained it. They most likely both trained it based on the experience of building Cloud Code. Trained that it will be eager to use sub engines to delegate tasks.
The force model, right?
Yes, Sonnet 4 and Opus 4. And what the M-Code creators from Scratch said that they said that Sonnet 4 is hungry or like eager to call sub agents compared to the Sonnet 3.7, which only occasionally did it, but it always wants to do it in a way like that. It is the post training of the model that needs to support these. And the Anthropic Cloud 4 models are the best at it. So you can't use any LLM for that, and therefore like this Cloud Code, this type of tool that is composable, it can call itself and uses the cloud models.
Yeah,
this is the best one in a sense. That it's because like if you have composable coding agent, I mean, like the possibilities are endless. With Cursor can't call itself. I mean, it can call like through MCP some other LLM, but this LLM doesn't have tools, right? Or you need to provide the tools. It gets messy, right? But this like recursive loop of calling itself, it's super powerful.
Can you actually go into this, explaining the difference? We talked a bit under the hood before, MCP versus tools, and how you think about it today. Where MCP is necessary, where
MCP and CLI.
Yeah, MCP versus CLI.
Yeah, so MCP, like it has exploded a lot again in recent months, and it is super useful. And like with remote MCPs, it's getting more useful and useful. And it's useful with if you're in cloud or ChatGPT or like these like desktop chat interfaces. But if you're using like CLI based model on your computer, or essentially a model on your which can run bash commands, then I don't really see a reason why would you use MCP if the
model can invoke if your context environment can invoke just tools, the CLI tools,
CLI command line tools. So why would you need MCP? I don't get it. Maybe somebody can explain to me why would I need it. But at the moment with Cloud Code, I think the only MCP I have like is Context 7, which is for
docs,
for documentation.
Yeah.
But
even that you can replace with
exactly. It's just like it was before I had this realization. So I don't need GitHub MCP. I don't need like whatever other MCP. If I have GitHub CLI authenticated installed on my machine, I have been using it anyway myself manually. Then like it like the agent can just call the CLI and
it can even compose them and pipe them, right? And this comes back to the Unix philosophy of how Cloud Code was built, and kind of, I mean, Cloud Code itself was built by having this Unix philosophy deeply embedded, but the fact that now it can use CLI tools, and it can even figure out like, I'll pipe this to this, and I think you said that it used it with your tooling that you have.
Oh, yeah. So with MCPs, you're like MCPs are not scriptable. At this time, I'm not aware of like that they are, but CLI tools are. So what I saw, like I built my own like CLI based task management tool with this Unix philosophy that it needs to be super simple. That you have like add command, have show command, you have list command, like that's it, and you have like some filters or whatnot. And what I saw how the Cloud Code used it was using list command of listing the tasks, and then using a filter of listing pending tasks, and then piping it to JQ command, and then getting the length and the output of the list command was JSON, and essentially getting the length of this JSON with JQ, and which is like output was some kind of number, 7 or something that, and then it was just checking itself how many tasks I still have left, something like that. Which I didn't even think about to like add this kind of feature, but you will have to think about it at that this feature the MCP, because like otherwise maybe you can list this task, but then you have this float.
Yeah.
But this way, the agent itself like saved its context window of this like big list of JSON when it just like got one number, which is like super efficient in a sense. Because like, why would you want to like every time you want to check how many tasks I left, like have the big list of description or like titles of the tasks in your context window, like every time. It's super inefficient because like you're plotting this context window, right? And this is like, I didn't even know that that the agent would use it like that, but it did, right?
Yeah.
It just came up with those. And another thing that when I had some kind of test task created, and then told the agent like, hey, here's the range of the tasks that I want you to delete them, and then it wrote inline bash command for loop to loop those like remove commands.
Yeah.
It was like I was just again mind blown.
Yeah, exactly. You can start just writing bash scripts.
Yeah.
On that.
You don't have to have like some kind of batch feature in your like tool.
Yeah.
If it's CLI tool,
Yeah.
scriptable,
Yeah.
which is like again like much more powerful than MCP.
Before we go to next topic, let's make 1 minute break. I'll just get water for myself, and we'll continue. So, MCP versus CLI tools, understood. The fact that they're scriptable versus MCPs is a big thing, and composable. Do you want to go deeper into Cloud Code?
Yes. So one thing, you have the slash commands, which is essentially this prompt library, and there have created many like prompts for like the slash commands, and this is like a bit more than prompt library in a sense that they're like these weird little creatures that they're marked on files, but they have this prompt matter where you can define like description, of course, like these things, but we defined which of the tools are allowed in this when like the agent is executing this slash command. So maybe if you want like for example, you want to have like what I have created is git status command, right? So then I will allow only like git commands, for example. Wouldn't need any other phone number. Why would it, right? So I can like make the list of commands that it can run like small, right? And what other things that which is powerful is that with this command, how you actually execute this, you just write slash in this Cloud Code like input box, and then it will auto complete all commands that you have, and then you can write after this command name
Arguments.
You can write arguments, yes, and inside this markdown file, you can expose or like echo these arguments into this
For the LLM to consume, right?
to the LLM in the place that you want. For example, I have GitHub repository initialization slash command, which as argument is the name of the GitHub repository. And what it does is it creates a new directory. It initializes Git in this directory, it will create README. It will do initial commit. It will create with GitHub CLI. It will create the repository in GitHub. Then it will set the remote origin to GitHub, and then it will finally push it. And this is all the step that it will do. And I will just need to call the / command with a single argument, and it just does it all for. And another thing that is useful, which I use, like for example with this git status / command, is that you can run like you can run commands inside that markdown, which will kind of become output of this command, become the prompt, like part of this prompt to the LLM. So in whatever part of the this markdown, you have this exclamation mark and then like this command, then it will run it automatically.
Yeah.
It will not be the agent who like calls it.
Just direct the call bash.
Yes, it will just call the bash command essentially, which is like kind of this weird somewhat scriptable prompts / commands. And I'm not aware of any other like this coding agents or AI coding tools have this kind of features, which is again super powerful in my opinion.
Can you talk about hooks?
Yes, hooks is even more powerful than / commands. Especially / commands, I have like usually with / commands you have like this things that you do very often. You just create the / command for that.
Just automate it.
Just kind of automating your like tedious vendor things. But with hooks, what you do is that you have this lifecycle events or lifecycle hooks that you can run commands on in Cloud Code. And lifecycle events that you can hook on are pre-tool use, which is essentially like if the agent is using a tool and the tool is like a bash tool, it's like a web search tool, it's like a read file tool, write file tool, like and all these different kinds of tools. So if you have this hook which is like pre-tool use, and you have hook which is like post-tool use, so you're like before using the tool and after using the tools. And then you have these matchers, which is like matching like which of the tools that are doing that and which you want to run the command on automatically. Like which is like deterministic behavior, which is not that common in the agents.
Can you give because as you said in YouTube you saw that people only saw the use of hooks for observability, but
so
what kind of life cycle or what kind of feedback loops you can do it without those?
You have like pre-tool use hooks, you have post-tool use hooks, then you have stop hook, which is hooked when the agent stops generating text, and it just stops and waiting for your answer. It's just like this is the stop hook. And then you have notification hook, like if it wants to some kind of confirmation or like wants some kind of choice for it. If you're not running it this YOLO mode, then it will ask like, can I don't know, change this file or run this tool or whatnot. Then like you also have like hook. For example, you can run like some bell sound or whatever, or maybe even like if you're like hook it up with some kind of service, you can run like you can send yourself mobile or like smartphone notification in push notification or like whatever. It's scriptable, again super powerful. But I was looking at like this different YouTube videos talking about hooks, and they mostly concentrated on this notifications part and the observability part, where you like
for example log prompt responses, right, somewhere
exactly
do this with that,
and like all these tool uses, like it's like you get this like stream of things that and the agent is doing, like stops and when it like using tools and all these kind of things, which is like quite useful. And then with this pre-tool use you can do like this security checks, for example, which is again super useful. For example, if it uses like what you can do and what is super scary sometimes when you're using like on actual production code bases is when it's doing web search, then it wouldn't stupidly include like your code or like some like sensitive information in this web search, sending it off to the world. Like that you wouldn't want to do that. So you could actually have pre-tool use hook. If it's used better, you would do a check. It's that command content. So this is what you can do with pre-tools. But the most powerful thing that I haven't seen like discussed or described anywhere at this now, hooks are pretty new feature there. Like is running post-tool use hooks to give feedback to the agent. And what I have created myself is different hooks for running ESLint, running TypeScript type checking, running tests. So ESLint is automatically, for example, when the agent changes a file, creates a file, changes a file, it will automatically run ESLint on this file. And I have configured in a way that it's using like ESLint cache, so it's fast. So of course, it's important that it's fast as well. You don't want to run this this linters and test for the whole project every time it changes a file. Then it will be slog, right? So and it's running the type checking, and also it's running the related tests to this file. So it will give the feedback right away. Like when it does something, it will get an error like, hey, you're like there are type errors, go fix them. So this is I think the most powerful like feature of hooks.
And you can orchestrate these feedback loops as per your needs, right? And
I have created this like this is essentially like the hooks are like you configure them as a JSON, and you have essentially a command. It's like a bash command, and it can be anything. You can have like run your own scripts, you can have run libraries, whatever.
Might be useful for audience to know. Would you like to talk about this open source project you have in GitHub, CloudKit?
Yes, so I have created mainly from my own use, but I thought it would be useful for others as well. It's the project is called CloudKit, and this is a collection of all the slash commands and all the hooks that I have been using for myself. And this is mostly about like TypeScript code bases. If you're using like something else, then it might be not that useful, but still useful as a reference to create your own hooks and
Concept supply still.
slash commands. Yeah, and then some of the slash commands are very like generic as well. For example, like the spec things and like git command and one not, or like creating this GitHub repository. It's like all open source.
I encourage listeners to check it out. It's pretty cool.
And again, like with this stop hook, which is like if it stops streaming the content, then I will run the whole project check, all these checks at everything.
And see if it completes all the tasks in your spec, and if it didn't, you will tell it to continue.
Right? So it does, but I mean that the project is in working state, that all tests pass, there are no type errors, there are no linter errors. And if there are, it will throw back to the agent until there are none, and then it can actually stop.
Yeah.
But this is like, I mean, like this is like really big and long, because like again, I don't think any other agent has this type of feature.
And again, just for me to understand, so the stop one, so how you made agent run for 9 hours is again by having a list of tasks. Did you have it in the stop hook to instruct it to, hey, make sure that all the tasks in the spec are completed? If not, go on to the next one. Or it was not necessary?
No, but I do what I do have. I have a hook for like Cloud Code has this to-do list, right? That creates for itself, and and for this 9 hour session, it created a to-do list to do all these tasks. Each task had its own to-do item. It was quite long. And what my hook does is when it stops, it will check does all the to-dos are marked as done in this conversation.
Okay.
When they are not, it will throw back to it, hey, complete your to-dos. And if there are some of the things not done, then it will realize, I have still these things. Okay, I start doing them. Or sometimes by mistake, it actually does the things and don't mark them as done. Then they see, okay, I already did. I just marked them as done. They have this kind of feedback loop as well, because like the use of to-dos is not deterministic. The agents, like the model still needs to decide to use them. Although the cloud code itself, like every time that it does something, it like marks like to done, it will prompt it to keep using to-dos.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah. So this is like when you use it, you start seeing some kind of the tendencies that it runs into. Like it sometimes runs these checks, linters, tests, and gets the feedbacks by itself if you prompt it to, and maybe sometimes it does it automatically, but sometimes it doesn't. So you want to like deterministic still like prompt it to do this, no? So you don't have to, as a person, to be this gatekeeper, right? If you can have code to gatekeep, and sometimes it's like really stupid things that it does, that it gets lazy, or like I don't know how to even describe it, is that it builds something and it fixes some of the things, then get feedback on, and then it sees that hey, like this is like edge case type, the edge case test failures, and the core functionality works, so I don't need to do this. It's like now it's production ready. It's like I mean, all this needs to pass, right?
Yeah, Kent Beck also said like agent hallucinates a lot, and sometimes when it's lazy, it even fixes his tests. Even when he instructs not to fix the test, he will still fix it and say like, yeah, now it passes.
Yeah, this is a different thing. This is reward hacking, right? But the weird thing is that like I don't need to fix this because the core functionality works. It's just the model is lazy, so then you need to like you need to have some kind of deterministic weighting, like push back that hey, all this needs to pass. Every like you can't have any linear errors or like type errors.
You mentioned to me once that code base needs to get increasingly agent native, or it needs to help agents to navigate the code base. Can you describe how code bases should adapt so that we can help agents act effectively? While you're responding, I'll try to make it better this way. It's a west side here, and I have sun, but getting late, so trying to manage the light. But yes, code base and making them agent native. Yes.
Yeah. So agents have like limitations, and like as discussed previously, they have amnesia, and they also can't run interactive tools. So by default, all the commands you have, like test commands and like all the other commands that it should run, needs to be non-interactive by default. Like for example, I have run into many times that it sets up vtest as test runner on the code base, but vtest by default is interactive, and when it runs the npm test, it will just keep on waiting on it because like you need to press key to to finish it, actually, which goes into this watch mode. And how you make it non-interactive, you run like vtest run. This is like with agents, it's like it's killing the essentially the
feedback loops, right? This
killing the process, I said, just stuck. And this is the one thing, right? That they can't run interactive commands. Another thing is that
Did they provide input in interactive comments? Comments? No?
no, because they're running bash commands, and they're because like they're running bash tool.
Yeah.
But the bash tool is something that the cloud code, like the agent's code, like the actual code needs to execute.
Yeah.
Like itself is not the model doing it.
Yes.
Model is just saying, hey, execute. Yes.
Execute that. Yeah.
So like essentially, like how would you like interact with it as a code, right?
True.
So it's like it's just not possible. It
Yeah.
doesn't work that. But that's why like it's kind of like a Achilles heel that if it runs into interactive command, then like it's game over. It can't get past it. It can't do anything because it's stuck. It's just waiting on it. Because like bash tool has like had this timeout, and it by default is 2 minutes, but still like every time it and it doesn't get this feedback as well, like this output. It just times out. So it's quite bad in that sense. I think if you start using it this way more autonomously, you will very fast run into that. Another thing is that you need to like manage the context window. Like usually like or the linters and like type checkers, test runners, they are very verbose in their output. For example, like you don't really need to output all the like test run output, all the tests that passed to the agent to pollute or like just like pushing to the context window of the agent. It's like completely unnecessary. If all the tests pass, you will just say test passed, single sentence.
Yeah.
Why would you like have this like kilometers of output in there? Like this is like
so very verbose outputs from CLI tools are not good for
seconds. And even if you have like some kind of errors and like these things like that, if there are a lot, you might want to like compact it so that just like and the agent can like by itself start like analyzing like what's wrong and maybe running like specific tests files on tests by itself which are failing. So you don't have to like give it like at once because it anyway can't fix at once like 27 tests, right? It will do it like one by one.
Do you think in 1 year, or maybe 1 year is still too long time, but in half a year all models, all kind of frontier models will have context windows at least the same or bigger as Gemini Pro right now? Like, I don't know, millions of tokens in.
I don't know because like it's quite a lot of work from in terms of the model architecture and also the training to get it to use the context, so big context window efficiency. Because the bigger it gets and like it just most likely gets poisoned or like it doesn't like remember everything. So I have had like many cases where I have this cloud.md where I have like some of the principles or how to do things, and then just the agent does something completely else. And when I ask it that hey, didn't you have this written in your like this cloud.md, which is like cursor rules for code?
He says, "Oh, sorry, I had."
And then let me look at it. Oh yeah, it's written there. But it's actually like it is automatically included in the start of the conversation.
Yeah.
If the conversation gets too long, it just forgets. Like other things go on, and especially if you are polluting it with this test results, you will just like it will forget the important thing. You want to only have the important things in the context window to like to keep it on the rails.
Got it. Anything else that helps agents to navigate code bases better, in your opinion? So we talked about making CLI tools better, managing context windows, CloudMD.
Yeah, so we want to have like a good like essentially like a kind of a guide for the repository. Because like again, coming back to that the agents or LLMs naturally have amnesia. Every time you start talking to them, every time you put them up, they don't know anything about their first day at the job. You want to have this general guide of what it is that they are currently working on. So you want to have this high level overview of the code base. And what I also include in my cloud.md is principles of working in this code base.
It's almost like with engineers, right? When you onboard an engineer, you want to have principles and
It's like it's coming like this, very much coming back to the fundamentals, and like you start seeing that you need to do like this very fundamental and best practice things with the agent as well.
Yeah.
Like at first, like you approach it to this some kind of a genie or like just like send them like one sentence wishes, but you actually need to approach them like kind of engineers that have amnesia first day at job, and then you will start like slowly become more efficient with them, and then start delegating things to them.
And this, you said there's CloudMD, and you also mentioned to me previously there's a new standard like agents MD or agent MD.
Yes. It's like there's so many. You have like Cursor rules, you have Cloud.md, you have Gemini.md, and then you have like this agents.md, you have agent.md, probably like Windsurf something, and like AI rules like GitHub Copilot. Some it does, I think, also that something.
So agent tries to unify.
Yes. So
Now we have +1 standard.
Exactly. So Toolscrap created this agent.md, which is like they didn't create, like the Sourcegraph like created this AMP CLI the agent. They didn't create AMP.md. They wanted to not to add on that we have this big mess. So they created agent.md and they want to push it as a standard and kind of like consolidate every agent, putting agent using the same. But what you can do today and what I'm actually doing in my code bases is using agent.md as a source of truth, and I'm creating automatically symlinks to all the other this context files of different engines like .cursor rules, cloud.md, gemini.md, all are symlinked to this agent.md.
You have a GitHub repository open sourced, right? That helps with it as well.
CloudGit has /commands for that.
It's there. Okay.
Yeah, it's instruction, yes.
So it's for
like,
people to check it out.
Yeah, it's just like running bash script to create this symlinks. And then like whatever and if you have code base different people use different tools, or maybe even yourself are like experimenting with different tools, that you always have this single source of truth. You don't need to like start creating cursor rows, start creating Gemini
So you would say or suggest people that agent.md is a good start as well.
Yes.
For the general context about the repository. So it's thinking about either agent or any new engineer who comes in. I mean, at least agent, right? That for them to have a high level understanding of the repository, why, as you said, what, and some principles, what they need to follow.
Like high level like overview of like what needs to be done, and also like
how tests are run or this is done.
Also like feedback loop in the sense that what commands to run by the agent to get feedback.
Yeah.
Is it working
on tests or this or that?
There's all type checking, all these things, like specific tests. So it doesn't have to like start like kind of trial and error, like figuring out what command to run when that maybe it's called like npm test, maybe it's called like I don't know yarn test or like whatever. Like doesn't automatically, it doesn't load package JSON, like for example, into this context window. It loads the agent.md, cloud.md into context window.
Yeah.
So you need to have the list of there, what is the exact command that needs to run to get feedback, right? Then it can do it. Because like it anyway wants to run that, see everything working automatically, but you need to help it, find it on the way to do it.
Can you actually explain, maybe those people who use Cursor, they know like sometimes what you need to do is drag the files or folders into the context. Well, we did it when we pair programmed, right, in the hackathon as well. I observed your flow when you used Cursor, and it was like dragging files and folders. In Cloud Code, as I understand, you don't need to do that. Is that correct statement?
You can do it with this and file name. It will autocomplete it for you, but you don't really have to do it because it's so smart in figuring out what files it needs to touch and what it look at usually.
Well, one thing I figured out, sorry to interrupt, I know in integration with IntelliJ, probably with VS Code as well, when I played with Cloud Code, what you can do though, is when you ask it something, right, you can very quickly select code or wherever your cursor is, or
Yes.
select the part, and I think you press Command Shift something, or I forgot the exact hotkey, and then it will reference it in the text that you're writing in the terminal, and that's kind of a nifty feature. But yeah, you don't need anymore to, whenever you ask a question, to actually drag it into the context, right?
Yeah, you don't. If you have like this IDE integration, then, but I'm not really using it inside IDE because it if it runs the sub agents, it starts like updating the terminal UI so much that the VS Code terminal just crashes. Okay. So I kind of can't use it. Maybe JetBrains is better, but yeah.
Worked quite well for me in JetBrains, but I'm not such a power user as you.
If you launch many of them, then it's just like flickering. Because it's updating so much of the UI than it's Postgres. Yeah. But yeah, Cursor and Cursor also has this code-based indexing. It's kind of RAG thing, which today I think it's like completely outdated and unnecessary with newer models. And
can you explain what changed, or why before it was necessary and now it's unnecessary?
It's that agents just became better and tool use, and one of
and navigating the code base, right?
Yes, and the tool that they use is grep.
Yep.
And specifically they use this ripgrep, which is fast grep tool.
But you're saying that in Cursor you would still use the striking thing today?
Yes. I'm just like intuitively, I don't trust it.
Okay.
To know what to do.
But probably this thing they will fix or improve in 1 month, because things move so fast.
And then also another thing that which is completely unnecessary and which was necessary maybe a year ago is this Cursor uses this apply model, which is essentially the LLM says that what it wants to change, and it runs through another LLM, which then outputs a diff, and which then changes, actually makes the change. And this is today, and it was necessary because at this point the models were not really good at changing files correctly. They made mistakes. But today the cloud models, new models, are like very good at it.
Okay.
And this is the complete unnecessary. It's like it's making the performance worse if you're with the apply model. It interpreted like very often wrongly what the models did, and the model actually became frustrated that apply model understood it differently, that actually I meant like this. It's such a stupid thing to this kind of like Cursor shooting itself in the foot with this apply model thing.
Can I ask you, before in Cursor you followed this flow of planner executor, right? Where for planner you use Gemini. I mean, it's pretty much like spec-driven development almost.
Yeah.
Very, very much like echoes that thing, right?
Yeah.
And then the executor, would just execute that. How did this flow conceptually change for you in Cloud Code? Are you still conceptually following the same thing, or has it changed? Or how would you compare these two experiences?
I mean, it's very similar. It's just I think
The planner mode is pretty much your spec.
yes, and
Right.
it's more thorough.
Spec is more thorough
Yes.
right now.
Yes.
Uh,
And I don't have like the tasks like checkboxes in a sense. I don't have in this spec anymore. I have it separately. So it is the spec is just like description of what.
And
Like with checkboxes like as like
and where the checkboxes live in separate tasks, or
they live as tasks. Yes.
okay, in which markdown? Just tasks markdown.
I use this my built myself the CLI based task management tool. It's called Simple Task Master, which is essentially its task is a markdown file.
Yeah. But you tell agents that, hey, find the tasks here, right?
I have /command which tells the agent to use this CLI tool to get pending tasks and work on them.
Got it.
So I can just prompt them, hey, work on pending tasks.
Understand. And it will know that it's there.
Yes, and
Right.
because I have this AZ.md has the context that hey, in order to work on tasks, you have to use this tool.
Yeah, got it.
The task file there. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, that's
Like evolved.
What do you think about zooming out? I want to ask you a question which, well, I'm thinking about, because now, you know, maybe I'll say a bit, right? In Pactum, we both are working in Pactum. We're trying to adopt AI agents, both, right? For local development and for engineers, also for building actually and embedding them in production, but that's a conversation for another day. But even, to help engineers adopt it. What's your stance on AI adoption in industry? How to succeed in this, and who will succeed, who will fail, how to make this transformation successful in companies, in your opinion, or any highlights or comments in this regard?
Yeah, it's tough because everything is changing, and I'm many developers are expressing the sentiment that hey, if I can't write code anymore, I don't want to actually be an engineer anymore. So in a sense, you need to hop on the train, on the train, or you will be left behind, and you need to evolve from being writing code to building software. So I think it's a mindset shift, and you need to start experimenting, and probably to have some kind of focus groups to kind of explore and iterate and experiment these kind of things. LLMs by itself, by nature, are solo tools in a sense. So it's it's work to get it efficiently use them in organization, in teams.
Yeah.
So it's and also it's actually another interesting thing that what happens is that code is now becomes an artifact, as we described, a spec, all these things. This is code is the end result, which in some sense does not matter really. Matter is what it does. What is the effect of it?
The structure, of course, still matters, right? For development and in professional settings, mattered a lot.
True. But still, what I mean is matters more. What was the prompt? What was the input to create this code? It is much more meaningful. And
the whole pipeline matters, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And today, like this is like all this prompt and this conversation, these are not stored anywhere. These are like you have in your like own ID in
Yeah.
cursor or whatever.
But in Cloud Code, it changes, right, with commands and hooks and all these things.
Yeah, but I mean, what I mean, if you work as a team, like and you create a pull request, an agent, like directing it like 100% did writing code, you're writing 50%, doesn't matter. Like what comes out is only the code, which is actually the artifact. It's like you have like the source code, and you're only like the developers, other developers are like reviewing the binary.
Yeah.
Which is like only half of the story, right? Like of course the binary also matters that this is to work, and but it's much more interesting what is the
What was the process of creating?
instructions and the thinking process that went into it, which informs a lot of what the code does. So what I think where we are moving to, like as the tooling of code agent, it needs to happen. Not something that as software like as teams can make it happen. Is that this like prompts, the specs, all these things become also
Part of like part of the PR, part of code.
the PR, part of the code base, part of the history of this code generation.
Yeah.
Because like these are actually in the like
That's a very interesting point. Yeah. And by the way, one thing I also would like people to encourage is, well, in Pactum, for example, we pair a lot, and it doesn't mean pair, by the way. When I say the word pairing, it doesn't mean necessarily pair programming. It could be, but it also means just pairing, like you both solve one epic or one problem together. But with agentic AI kind of wave, with the wave, and it's here to stay and evolve, I would encourage people to pair and really to actually pair program and learn from each other, because this is really where like you will learn a lot from each other, like, and you will experiment with these tools. You can share ideas. Oh, how do you use this? And because pair programming as a tool to actually see and get insights from how your colleagues work, this is very useful as well, especially if you have AI champions, so to speak, who are very good at this. You can learn a lot from them by pairing. Like I learned a lot from you by pairing during hackathon, but I think that's also one way. Another thing, at least my thought is, you can encourage people to adopt tools from different angles from which they see the most use for themselves. So, or where it feels the most friendly for them. So what I mean is, maybe some don't want to still replace coding for them. Where they can start from is on the angle from using agents to understand code bases, to help with documentation, to help with diagramming needs. So there are many use cases where they can help you. And by building this intuition and kind of involving with it in use cases where you kind of feel the most, I don't know, kind of fuzzy and have this warm feeling, yeah, agents can help, or like maybe the tasks that you hate the most and you want to outsource to agents, I think that's a good place to start, right? And then slowly maybe you'll be like, okay, maybe agents can help me automate actually some of my coding part as well. So that's how I would encourage people as well to explore.
True. But coming back to the like sharing the context of the creation of this code, like becoming the artifact, I think soon many of the agent tools have a feature which AMP code does, which is the source graph CLI based coding agent. It has a feature called threads, and this is like the conversation that you had locally, it is synced to cloud and it's shared with the team.
Nice.
So basically what you can actually do is
link it right in the PR, right?
Not only that, you can jump into this thread as another developer and continue this conversation.
And the context is shared. So again, the whole prompt and specs, they become part of the...
Actually, like you can make it a team game. So you can work as a team with the agent, be the same conversation on your own computer, which is...
and I think, by the way, can become a way of pair programming together as well.
Exactly.
You have a remote way to manage context and everything. And then, I mean, you work on something, then they work on something.
First, it informs you what was the iteration and the thought process, right? what was the conversation with the agent, but you can join in as well. So it's like I think very powerful, and like it makes it like usable in a theme. Otherwise, it's buried away somewhere, and like surfacing it as a start is would be super useful. And this is like I think part of this kind of observability, for example, with Cloud Code or something.
Yeah.
That if it's not built in, you can kind of create some kind of scripting to do it.
So we're slowly wrapping up. I know there are many topics to discuss, but soon at it's 9. By the way, it's 10 o'clock here in Tallinn. We have kind of white nights. We started at roughly 8:15, so soon we'll be at 2 hours. But let's try to wrap up in 50 minutes or so. Just saying. But we might have new episodes. But I asked my colleagues yesterday, from our colleagues from Pactum, I said I will have a podcast recording with Carl tomorrow on Agentic AI. What should I ask him? So I got 4 questions for you. Can you do kind of rapid answers or like 1 minute? Red asks, how has being a father changed your perspective on AI? Sorry, I broke the news.
It does not yet. She is only like 3.5 months old, but I'm sure it will soon when she starts talking and we're having conversation, because like it's super interesting to see kids who are like native to the technology that we are not like grown up with. Touch screens, and now the AI, like it's they don't know world without it. And this is like this kind of mindset is completely foreign to us.
By the way, I had interesting interaction with my son, and we were discussing some, Africa or animals there or something, and I said, why don't we speak with AI on it? And I opened ChatGPT and the voice mode, and we just chatted with AI. But for him, it was like natural. Like he was not like doing wow or something. He just consumed it like as its second nature. And it was so interesting to see like how kids just take it for granted. And like we amazed at this technology, but they take it for granted. It's a very interesting experience.
And this is what means to be AI native, right?
Yeah.
And this is why we need young people to come teach us this thing, that it comes natural to them.
Next question, also from Red. How much of your time goes into vibe coding versus actual engineering?
I mean, I'm on parental leave, so 100% vibe coding.
Right.
Because like it's super addictive.
Yeah.
I mean, like
Kent Beck also said it's super addictive.
And like many of the people who like are using like this like Cloud Code and this like say like it's like
I heard there's a term like LLM or agentic fatigue or like burnout. Like people also get tired sometimes because of it.
Yeah, because it's such a like a roller coaster. That it's like you're at one point you're amazed at what it did, and next point you're super disappointed that it stopped everything. That it can be super brilliant and super stupid. Like
that's why you need to harness its powers, right?
Exactly.
Right. A question from Mick. What are some of the wildest or most creative vibe coding projects that turned out to be genuinely useful in everyday life?
I don't know what it means by everyday life. I haven't created like tracking something in my everyday life or something like that, my shopping list. But what my everyday life is software engineering, so I have created tools for managing tech, like for example this task manager. It was like
simple task manager.
Yes,
it's in your GitHub.
Simple task master.
Master, right? Okay.
Yeah,
you can check it on the Carl's GitHub.
Created that, and it's super useful. It's so simple yet so powerful.
And it's agent native, right? Because it doesn't have this interactive CLI. It's actually all meant for agent.
There is this Taskmaster AI, which is super popular, but it was so feature bloated, and it in the past how LLMs or like agents are like the constraints of overcoming constraints of previous generation of coding agents, which are now necessary. Then like like new agents just need simple tools and orchestrate them.
Martin asks an interesting question. What software engineering programming tasks AI cannot yet accomplish or does that poorly?
Well, software design.
Software design.
They can code, but they cargo out the design, which is terrible.
What about, I think we had this conversation a while ago. What about SQL, writing SQL?
I think they're better than me.
They became better, right? But remember the time when,
That's it.
right?
But,
Yeah.
But like,
I think there was a time when they were terrible at that, but it was a long time ago, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So now they
And
croaked SQL.
especially with like these agents, you have feedback loop, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, for example, I have not written migrations for a long time by hand.
Yeah.
But like, I just like when I was working with Coursera, I just gave it. Here are some of the migrations that do pretty similar thing. Just write new one, and I looked it over and it's correct.
What's your opinion on the role of documentation? Now, this is a question from me. Role of documentation, because there's no point in mirroring code base, right, with documentation, because you can ask agent on the code base how documentation will evolve, or what actually, when we manually as engineers type in documentation, what information should we convey about the project, about the product, first and foremost?
I think usually you don't really need to type in the documentation. It's a waste of time because like,
Do you think it's important to explain why, right?
Explicit and like deterministic things in the code base, the agent can document by itself. To have like condensed version of like what happens in the code base. But what you need to instruct it to write down yourself are the principles, like how you want the agent to behave. That the agent can do it by itself. What are the rules? What are the principles? This is what you need to do.
And from my perspective, the documentation nowadays, actually manual documentation is really not for only engineers, but it should be first of all relevant for the team, and it should first of all describe the domain where you're in. It should describe the problems and the solutions and the vision of your team. It should really like tackle those things first and foremost, explain the context, like business context around it. And then again, with engineering context, maybe just like some high level architectural diagrams or principles, and then the rest, the code details don't need to be mirrored.
Where the documentation lives, it needs to be accessible to agents. It can't live in Confluence in and away from the agent.
Do you think Confluence like MCP solves it, or not yet, or it's not really friendly yet, right, for agents?
I don't know if it even has MCP, but even if it has, then they need to instruct it somewhat. I think it will be even more useful. Of course, like if you can search it and whatnot, but maybe it will be much more useful if you can somehow, like in your agent.md, link to the relevant like those words. They won't have to be like marked down in your code base. But for example, if you would have like Confluence CLI tool, then you can have like exact like ID of the document that you would want the agent to check out if it like tackle some of the things.
But ideally, as you say, I think it's an interesting insight indeed, like that the documentation and agentic AI, I mean, in the engineering workflow should be more tightly, kind of the feedback loop should be tighter, right? Where agents are able to at least propose changes to the documentation that you can review and read the documentation for the context or other things.
This is like, and this is where like all the feedback or this slash commands, this hooks and all these things come in. For example, you go on like, I have created like several libraries. One of them is this simple taskmaster, and I have this shell script which is preparing a release of this library. And what it does is runs the test. It checks that there's no like uncommitted changes and like this does this sanity checking. Is it ready for release? There's no issues. And then what it does, it runs Cloud Code as a on CLI with the prompt to look at the diff and write changelog for the new version. Then look at README. Is README needs to be updated automatically based on the diff. What changed? And then pump the version, and then I can push it to publish it.
And this is again in command or hook, or where is this?
It's just like npm script.
Ah.
Just a release script. When I see it and I'm ready to release, I just run the script, and it's like hands off.
Got
It updates changelog, it updates README when it needs to be updated, and it's like
So I think
you can actually update it like on the like automate it, doing like updating documentation, and you can also say it like, hey, like this is the documentation, and then it can like look it over and update.
This is again maybe a topic for another discussion, but it's interesting how now we can embed more and more agentic AI tooling into CI/CD pipelines. So not only for kind of while you're developing locally, but also in GitHub checks, in different checks across your pipeline.
Exactly.
And it's very powerful.
You like again like, and this becomes possible if you have CLI based coding agents. You can run them.
Exactly.
CI/CD pipeline. Right? And you could potentially have
even Cursor. Oh, sorry, not Cursor. Even Cloud Code is CI friendly, because you can kind of pipe it and give it messages. And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And you can like, if you run this / command of GitHub Action or whatever it is, it can automatically create the workflow for you. It has template, and it runs in the GitHub Action. But potentially, you could like run, for example, just like very specific different checks which are not deterministic. Like you have some kind of like style principles which are not, you can't like create ESLint truths for them, for example. Then you can have run checks against them, like for this diff that is in the pull request. Then you can have some kind of like non-deterministic security checks, for example.
Yes.
Are you not like doing some stupid things security wise? Then you can have like all this like list of like checks with different prompts. What to actually check with this distro, which is like, man, it's so much more powerful than just one person looking at it and saying that looks good to me.
You can check, for example, like our credentials in the code base. Is this there? Is this there? Yeah. I think even translation pipelines can be kind of, integrated in CI. Yeah,
that is exactly what I mean with that.
It opens up so many possibilities.
CLI based coding agents, like new primitive.
Yeah, they're new primitive. Yeah.
Wherever you can write code.
Yes.
Do like non-deterministic things now.
Let's end on this today, but I would be really happy to explore some other time, hopefully. And again, I promise to myself, and I promise to Carl, that I will release this episode very soon, because things evolve so fast that it doesn't make sense to release it in 3 months. So yes, I will release this episode soon. But I would be happy to talk to you sometime more about building AI agents for production. And in Pactum we do that. We are building Pactum AI agents that run procurement. Shameless plug, we are hiring. So if you want to work with Carl or with me, feel free to go to our careers page or talk to me, DM me or Carl.
We have other very smart people as well.
Yeah, and it's exciting time right now in Pactum and generally to be in software industry and engineering industry.
Like tying back to coding agents, I have learned so much in using and understanding the fundamentals of Cloud Code, and also like this coding agents, how they work, to inform building agents myself. Like there's so many patterns.
We build intuition, right, on the context, managing context, doing this and that.
Like tool use, like this
feedback loops.
Exactly. Like this, for example, these hooks and these things.
So this is lesson number 1. If you want to build production AI agents, use it for local development as much as possible.
Just like use them and try to understand and then try to push them, and then you can see like, and also you can start seeing like model tendencies. They need to like guard against them, like this kind. You essentially build intuition and fundamental understanding of agents.
Yeah.
Which like they're coding agents, but they're like actually general purpose agents.
Thanks, Carl. It was a pleasure to talk to you today. Let's meet again, maybe for round 3. And yeah, what's your plan for next few weeks on your paternity leave? Play around with Cloud Code, or any more kind of ambitions about agentic AI learning?
Yeah, I want to make Cloud Code as autonomous as possible with these guardrails, and just like building these guardrails and making it efficient as possible. Like this, it just it has so much raw power.
Yeah.
Just need to harness it.
I think you should write blog posts about it as well. By the way, Carl has a very famous, I mean, maybe by today outdated, but because things move so fast, but some of the best articles on overviews of AI agents. So just add for Carl, but really his blog posts are really great.
Actually, it is not outdated because it's
Yeah, it's still relevant, yeah.
it's relevant because it touched the fundamental.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Like, and
It's on your Medium, right?
it's in Medium, yeah.
Ah.
And then it touched many of the things that have not yet happened.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Nice. So they're not outdated. Check it out.
It is not. It's not. And like for example, memory. It's
Mhm.
unsolved.
Yeah.
It's very in very primitive stages. Yeah.
Thanks, Carl. It was a pleasure. Yes. Let's see how many 2 hours. Well,